Hey, I'm Lou. Thank you for tuning in for this first episode. It feels interesting to be recording because I usually start my newsletters with Dear Readers, but today you're listening, so thank you again. I wanted to do this first episode without necessarily a script. I thought I would give you an update on my Chinese learning. I started learning Chinese in May, and it was a really good time for my language learning. I went quite fast during the first month or two. I blasted through HSK 1 in a couple of weeks. Then I took about a month for HSK 2, and I had been told that HSK 3, so like the third standardized level, was definitely a step up. And I could feel that. I don't think that I hit a wall, but I definitely saw an increasing difficulty. And it's been really interesting because although I have experience from learning like 5 languages by now, I still find myself being surprised, especially by Chinese, which has a lot of features that are really unique to it, at least compared to the languages I already speak. So it was really interesting. I think the thing I'm struggling the most with is probably tones, because I don't speak any tonal language, so I really had to train my brain to not only record and memorize the consonants and vowels, I guess, but also record the tone as a part of the meaning, which of course I learned intonation, stress in English and intonation in lots of languages, but it's not exactly the same, is it? It's like meaning on each syllable, on each sound. So it's interesting, and I'm happy to be learning something new. I actually had to come up with some strategies to force myself almost to notice and learn tones. So one way I'm doing it is by I'm using an Anki deck that is pre-made to learn each Chinese character ranked by the standardized, again, HSK vocabulary. And so basically it gives me a character and I have to remember how it is pronounced and what it means. It also gives me a little sample sentence, only in Chinese, of course, so maybe sometimes I can guess with context, especially if there's homonyms that could mean different things in different contexts. And so one tip that really helped me with Chinese is that if you're getting the tone wrong, you're getting the word wrong. So you have to consider that you don't know the word, because you wouldn't be able to recognize it in spoken language and you wouldn't be able to speak it either, which might sound trivial, but I had to force my brain to understand that. And at first, when I noticed that I was really struggling with remembering these tones and I kept getting them wrong, or sometimes I thought I got it right but then I pronounced it wrong, I came up with some ideas. Like, I would do gestures at the same time as I pronounced the tones, and I found that this really helped me, especially at the beginning, because it also forced me to slow down. I wasn't just blazing through Anki cards like right, false, 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 right. I was taking a bit more time to maybe hold my phone in one hand and with the other hand going maybe down with my hand if it's a down tone, or maybe up. And I would also practice pronouncing at the same time, pronouncing very slow. And I've noticed since I started doing this, I'm definitely getting much, much better results. I still get some wrong and I still forget some of them, but the statistics are much closer to like the mistakes I would make in any other language that I'm learning as a beginner. So I'm quite happy about that. I think the second big challenge of learning Chinese is obviously recognizing the characters because it doesn't have an alphabet. And I'm honestly surprising myself for this part because I'm not struggling so much, I think. Maybe it's because since I don't know many characters, they all look quite different so far. So I don't really have, I would say, opportunities to get confused between two characters because, they're different enough and my vocabulary base is small enough that if I know that I'm supposed to know this character, I can also guess what it means. So I'm also looking forward to seeing how this is going to challenge me when I try to consume more content. Because so far, I kind of gave myself a challenge of like finishing HSK 3 before really trying to listening to a lot of content, like a lot of Chinese. I found a lot of like books, like graded readers. I found some videos on YouTube, some podcasts that are made for people, like for beginners, and they usually mention HSK 3. They say like, yeah, if you're not at that level, it would be hard to be listening to anything, apparently. And it makes sense, because in HSK 1 you only have 150 characters and they're like the most common ones. Then HSK 2, same thing, 150 characters. But then, so by then you would know 300 characters. But then when you go up to HSK 3, you double that again. So you go with 300 more characters. So with 600, you definitely have a good base. You wouldn't be able to understand any native content, but content meant for learners is much easier to create. So honestly, although like reviewing vocabulary like this can seem a bit boring maybe, or a bit repetitive, I'm really motivating myself to keep going because I know that the reward is also starting to listen to a lot more Chinese. And if you've read my entries before, you know that I mostly learn languages because I think they sound really cool, and Chinese is no exception. Like Mandarin Chinese sounds really interesting to me, and I can't wait to be listening to more of it. About my study plan. So when I started learning in May, I thought, well, I took 2 weeks to study HSK 1, maybe I'll take a month to study HSK 2, and maybe a couple of months to study HSK 3. And this was kind of my pessimistic approach. But now that I am deep into learning, I realized that it wasn't pessimistic at all, it was quite optimistic actually. I had planned on finishing HSK 3 by the end of August, and it is not going to be the case. If I wanted to finish just the vocabulary without the grammar lessons, I would need to learn about 15 to 20 words a day for the next 10 days, which would be doable, but I don't think it would be the smartest to remember vocabulary properly. So I'll take it slow. I'll keep learning the vocabulary first and then I'll go into the lessons. And yeah, I'll reward myself with some comprehensible input. So if you have any recommendation, please feel free to leave it in the comments or send it to me right away. I would be really happy to collect them and it will make me even more excited to learn. So yeah, again, like I said, this is a non-scripted, pretty authentic, I would say, catching up of my Chinese learning. If you enjoyed it, please let me know if you thought it was a bit too long or my microphone is terrible or anything like that. Please feel free to let me know as well. Feedback is really helpful, and like you might have seen, not many people leave comments at all. So honestly, it's always a delight to see someone commenting, no matter like if it is something really positive or if it is some feedback. I think my favorite is always personal experiences and people talking about like how they can relate or how they do certain things differently. It's the most rewarding for me. Um, I asked you in the previous entry what you wanted to hear about, hence why I'm doing this little catch up of my language learning. If you have any questions, or maybe sometimes when you hear someone speak, it raises some questions, or if you have other topics in mind, maybe other issues you're having with your own learning journey, please feel free to let me know so that I can again record something or write something that really interests you, because it's the purpose of what I do. I really want to help you. Again, I've spent now more than 4 years, if we're not counting English, more than 4 years learning foreign languages. So it's always a pleasure to hear from other learners and to share my experience as well. I hope you have a lovely day. And again, let me know if you need anything. Bye.